right. Is it possible to see the light and geometry bend after the fact? My mother died 5 weeks ago, and although I was with her all day and came the next morning, she died about 5 a.m. and it was not there. Is that, and I was not there. I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. So do you want to try that, Raymond? Would you like me to say it again? Because
Yes, I would like to hear that again.
Is it possible to see the light and geometry bend after the fact? Or is there a shift? My mother died 5 weeks ago, and although I was with her all day and came the next morning, she died about 5 a.m. and I was not there. So I guess the person saw it after. Yeah, is that possible? Or what have been your
Yes, what I would say in this is that once you start thinking about these things, all the near-death experiences, the shared death experiences, we are in the habit of taking the time dimension into account. But I gather from the thousands of people I've talked to that really time disappears the moment you step into this other state of consciousness. And psychologically, it does some strange bending acts while we're still here. I mean, and the next statement will sound psychotic, but I am convinced that my dear friend, George Ritchie, and mentor, the first living person I ever heard a near-death experience from, I saw that he could walk in time. I mean, he didn't draw attention to it, but he did it. And along with a lot of other things, I mean, he was just the most wonderful man with all his faults, and he could walk in time. So what I'm getting at is when you're thinking about this stuff, you just got to have some sort of way in your mind of thinking that the time sequence is no longer relevant in this opening that occurs around a death.
Yeah, that's great. Lynn, do you want to add to that before we move on to some of the more open questions?
Yeah. So what we found is that these patterns, in this case, change in the time-space continuum and light as well, almost with all these features, they can happen before, I mean, minutes, hours, in some cases, days before, likewise afterwards. In fact, in the research, 9% of the SDE cases happen before death, the actual kind of the medically defined death, which is, stopping of the heart and brainwave cessation. And then I think about 14% happens after. So we do see these patterns of the SDE happening not at the exact time of death at all. And I would encourage the person who asked this question to know that she had an SDE with her departing, I think it was her father. And this is common. So, and it's also, people ask that question so much, well, I had this experience after or before, does it still count as an SDE? And the answer is absolutely. Yeah, it's the pattern we look for. And as Raymond said, these patterns can happen at any time really in our lives, but there's something that happens around death that opens up this energetic vortex for these experiences to happen.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and insert there, that's a wonderful term, William, from my own personal experience when my mom died, the vortex. I mean, that's exactly, I found myself in an inverted cone. I know it sounds crazy, folks, but a lot of people listening to this probably said, oh yeah, I saw that too.